Tonight, in our continuing series on the special coverage of the El Nino, we focus on wastewater management. Oftentimes when it rains, sewers across Kenya's urban areas burst, forcing locals to wade through the murky and stinky waters. The poor drainage systems is one of the major challenges witnessed in most parts of the country, and if not fixed on time, then the anticipated El Nino rains will have a devastating impact on the people. The stormwater associated with flooding has also led to loss of human life, damage to property, and even other health hazards. NTV's Kevin Mutai takes us through how some parts of the country are preparing to avert the negative impacts of the heavy rains expected in the months of October, November, and December.
We are likely to have floods over the low-lying areas, especially over the northeastern parts of the country and northwestern parts of the country, the southeastern lowlands, and also the Lake Victoria Basin and the urban centers that have poor drainage system. We are also likely to experience a lot of flooding in those areas.
With the warning issued by the Kenya Meteorological Department on the possible flooding in various parts of the country as a result of the El Nino rains, vulnerable populations are likely to suffer the brunt of the phenomenon for lack of preparedness. In 1997, the heavy rains wreaked havoc. The flooding in major towns attributed to the poor infrastructure and the clogged drainage systems.
From 1997 and even from other rainfall seasons where we've had very heavy rainfall, we've seen that there's been a lot of loss of lives and damage to property. And so what we are saying is that we can try to avoid the losses and damages associated with the heavy rainfall expected during this October, November, December season by taking a few measures. Like, for example, we can try to create more awareness on weather and climate issues, and more so emphasizing on the need to adapt to the changing weather patterns.
Traditionally speaking, whenever these warnings are released, the most important action is in the early action interventions that take place at the local level to prevent risks of flooding, so to mitigate, to prevent.
Major cities such as Mombasa have previously suffered the impacts of the heavy rainfall, some of the streets flooding, hence disrupting traffic and even livelihoods.
There are going to be contracts, adverts that are going to be issued very soon for the areas of Bomu. As we're speaking right now, there are going to be adverts that are going to be issued for the construction of Mahima stadium area as well, and all of this is just to be able to avert any likelihood.
The Emergency Response Committee has mapped out several areas which are prone to flooding, such as Utange, Ziwa la Ng'ombe, Kadzandani and Bomu, among other places, coming up with several measures to safeguard locals from the effects of the expected El Nino rains.
Tulipigwa blow last time, lakini hatuwezi kubali sasa pia tupigwe ngumi. Tulikuja na Department ya Transport and Infrastructure, na sisi kama Department ya Planning tumeassess area. Ukikumbuka wakati uliopita hapa kwa kumejaa sana kwa sababu kuna mto. So tumeweza kuassess na maengineer wakatoa wasia wao, wakasema lazima hizi ziweze kuwa expanded. Sasa wana zimekuwa expanded na maji hapa sasa yatapita vizuri, na kuna mikakati mingi. Kuna mikakati gavana naeka ya kuweza kuweka wale Mombasa yangu waweze kutrainiwa tukishirikiana na Red Cross ili tuweze kuokoa watu wetu.
In Ziwa la Ng'ombe, for example, we have a total of 50 soak pits, vertical drains, and we have opened all of them. We are servicing them to make sure that at least they help us manage the issue, because as you realize, Ziwa la Ng'ombe is a basin. It is the lowest point in Nyali, so all water tend to converge there. But we hope that these soak pits or vertical drains will help us deal with the problem there.
We will be prepared as well in the event that we will need to be in a position to vacate people, those who are in the low-lying areas as well, and especially areas that have not been, that are not formal houses per se.
Environmental experts say that structures built on the waterways and even wetlands have also contributed to floods in some areas. The consequences of this has seen some houses getting submerged during the heavy rainfall season, displacing hundreds of people.
Na ukiapproviwa ujenge vilivyoapproviwa fanya hivyo, kwa sababu ikifika wakati hatuwezi kuruhusu maisha ya maelfu yaharibike kwa sababu ya mtu mmoja. Tutadili na wewe ili watu wapate nafuu.
In April this year, the Maimahiu-Narok Road was closed after a heavy downpour that caused fault lines along the highway. A similar incident was also witnessed in Kiamunyi area on the outskirts of Nakuru town, where deep gullies were formed due to the heavy rains. As a result of these impacts, there is need for community sensitization in order to avert loss of life and destruction of property.
Ile sehemu yenye mimi nitoka kwa Tana River kulikuwa na madhara mengi sana, kwa sababu tukienda upande wa mto maji yalijaa yakawa mengi yakaharibu mashamba. Kiupande wangu mimi nitasema bado hatujajiandaa, kwa sababu mpaka sasa hivi kuna watu wenye wanaishi sehemu za lowland na wameambiwa waondoke wakae sehemu ya juu, lakini mpaka sasa hivi kuna watu wenye wanaishi hiyo sehemu.
Sadly so is that whenever we talk about early preparedness, globally speaking, there is very little resources put in place for early action. And our request and our appeal to donors, the donor community, is to avail as much resources as possible for early intervention, early action. That is what is going to make the difference in people's lives.
And there are fears of the outbreak of waterborne diseases.
So we are also likely to see an increase in vector-borne diseases because of the floodings, because the floods will produce conducive breeding grounds for disease-causing insect like the mosquitoes. So what we've advised the Ministry of Health is to put in place water and sanitation hygiene measures, like they can provide water treatment chemicals to residents, especially who rely on open water sources for their water needs.
We have already done polio vaccination, cholera vaccination, which the campaigns that we have been doing, and this has gone with sensitization on how to also prevent some of the waterborne diseases that are likely to come with El Nino.
The government says plans to establish strategies to mitigate the severity of the expected El Nino rains are underway, with the stakeholder engagement interrogating the level of preparedness across the country. Kevin Mutai, NTV in Mombasa.